What's up, Magical Misfits? Drew here, and this is a little bit different than videos I normally make. It's kind of a baby witch video, which is funny because I've seen a few other people doing them recently. This is the video I wanted to do a couple weeks ago when I decided to talk about Osset instead. Last week I wasn't really feeling good, so I finally got into it. And so basically it's a sort of my advice for new witches, if you're interested, but also kind of how we can be effective in our magic and our witchcraft. Kind of all goes hand in hand because that's kind of the gist of what I want to give to a new witch. The first thing that I want to say is it's a question. If you are new to this path and you're just coming into it, I want to ask you to ask yourself, why are you here? What is it that you're looking for? What are you doing here? What brought you to magic? And there are like a million answers to this question, and most of them are not what I would refer to as wrong. There's not really one answer to this question, right? I mean, maybe it's curiosity. You are just genuinely curious about what's going on over here in witchcraft land. And that's great. That's cool. There is that expression, curiosity killed the cat, but that normally comes from people whom are trying to control what you think, say, do, how you behave, that kind of thing. And you're not going to find that as much in this community. I won't say it's not there at all. We do have those who do like to say that they're right and others are wrong, and this is the way you should do this thing, and this, that, and the other. And I guess if you want to be fully submerged and loyal to a tradition, that might be applicable. But if you're just on a general path on your own, it's kind of free for all. So fortunately, we don't have a lot of that. The majority of the community is very accepting and open to differences, and we celebrate it to an extent. So curiosity is more than welcome. Maybe you just think it's cool. It's exciting. There's something very appealing about it. You've seen, movies, TV, whatever. That's okay too. I'm not going to get mad at you for that if that brought you. You might be disappointed when you realize what's really going on. Then again, maybe not. Maybe you have a friend or an acquaintance, someone who has exposed you to their craft and practice, and it has excited you and made you curious, and you want to see what it's about and see if there's anything here for you. Maybe you're just looking for yourself. You're just seeking and you're stumbling across this, that, and the other. And witchcraft is something, probably Wicca, that popped up in your periphery and you want to check it out. Again, none of these are wrong answers. Then there's a million more reasons and they're all wonderful. It's great. Whatever brought you, for the most part, is going to be okay. There are some, glaring exceptions. Like, for example, if someone comes into the community who doesn't genuinely care about or even believe in the craft, in magic, and is just looking to make a buck off of some stupid witches, obviously that is not a good reason, right? I'm not really going to get into all that. For me, the one reason that I want to point out for this video, if you have come to witchcraft because you seek to have power over others, you have come for the wrong reason. Witchcraft is not going to do that for you. Granted, you can do workings against people all day long. You can do whatever you want to try to control a situation and manipulate a situation, and you may have some varying degrees of success. But magic is extremely unpredictable. Magic is like water in that it flows in the easiest way possible. It is going to take the easiest, most natural and direct route to get to where it needs to go. And we are not always capable of thinking out all of these different ways it might manifest or seeing how it might come to be. We are also not in possession of all information at all times. We are not omnipresent, all-knowing. So we cannot know all the factors to know exactly what might happen, right? So magic can be extremely unpredictable. If you have come to the path because you seek to have control over others, that is not a good reason. If that brought you to the craft and you were able to learn and develop and grow and change, then ultimately we can forgive that, right? I mean, it's good that you came to the path that was right for you, but If you're sitting before a screen watching this video and your intent is, I just want to control other people, I just want to control everything, then I'm telling you, you're going to be disappointed, because that's not what you're going to get from this. It's not a good reason to practice. Although witchcraft is very much a path of self-empowerment, power over the self. And it can give you some sense of power and control in your life, which can be very empowering, obviously, but a beautiful thing, really. You can find that in witchcraft. If you're seeking to find it from within, if you're seeking to create change and whatever it is from within, rather than control external stuff, then you're going to be able to do a lot of beautiful things in your craft. Again, that's not to say that you can't do a spell to affect things around you and have success with that. It's just more complicated than that. To be truly effective in our magic, we have to put in the work. We do. You can't just slap some oil on a candle and expect all your problems to be solved. It's not going to happen. Again, you may have some measure of success even if you don't dive deep, but I don't know a witch who isn't self-aware and isn't working on themselves and isn't trying to be a master of self more than anything else. We don't all get it right all the time, and we all have flaws and damage and what have you, but I'm sure there are plenty of people who are just practicing. They're not diving in deep with it at all. And of course, having some level of spirituality would assist with that, but it's not necessary. You can be an atheist and still do work on the self and still do psychological, emotional healing in order to become better within yourself. There doesn't have to be an element of spirituality involved. There's this expression that keeps coming to me with this, and it's know thyself. Even I will say heal thyself. Let's think about, in a very basic, generalized way, what magic is. So just very basic, very generic, generalized. Magic is about manipulating energy. Now, if I am manipulating energy, obviously that is going to be influenced and affected by me and my energy. I am also energy. Everything is energy. Energy is eternal, right? So anything that I am doing is colored by me. So there's some questions that are good to have in mind when it comes. Again, this could be something that we could sit down and ask ourselves every time we do spell work, but I think it's something that just in general should be worked on. And then it doesn't have to be this big, long rigmarole of some sort right before spell work to get yourself in the place you need to be in to be effective in your magic. If you are working all the time, as much as possible, then you're going to be effective in your magic. So some questions we can ask ourselves. Am I centered? And what I mean by am I centered is, am I standing in my power? Am I out here being reactive and giving my power away to everyone and allowing them to affect me in ways that are depleting, that are negative in some way, that are not helpful, and that are not helping me to be effective in my magic, or just to be a centered, happy, healthy person within myself, standing in my own power in my daily life? Are we doing our shadow work? I'm not going to get into specifics about this in this video. Like, there's a million and one ways that someone could do shadow work, but essentially we're talking about diving into psychological and emotional wounds, patterns, behaviors, what have you, figuring out where they come from, where they stem from, and trying to heal them, confronting them, being aware of them, moving through them, and growing beyond them. Integrating the bits that need to be integrated for wholeness, to be more full of the self and more centered and more empowered. Another question that could be beneficial in daily life, but certainly is beneficial right before spell work, is, am I focused? Am I distracted by 10 million things that are going on in my environment? Or can I get focused and be in this place, be in this one space of what it is I'm trying to accomplish? Again, I am feeding the spell. I am directing the spell. I am working the spell. So if I am an emotional wreck, like I am totally chaotic because of whatever reason, I'm giving my power away to the chick at the grocery store who gave me stink eye or whatever. I'm just reactive and upset, and I'm in a victim state, or Many, many different ways that this can be true. And it's true of all of us. We all get into a space where we can be reactive and we can get triggered and what have you. We all have our moments, right? But I think in general, if we are working toward being centered and being in ourself and not giving our power away, we will be far more effective in our magic whenever we go to work that magic. So the message there is do your work. Do your work. If that's meditation, meditate. If that's shadow work, do shadow work. If that's, shamanic journey or astral or daily affirmations, I love to practice Sith. I mean, there's a million different things. Enter Reiki, like whatever it is, do your work. Do what you need to do to develop yourself, to heal yourself, to become more whole and integrated within yourself so that you can be a more effective energy worker and more effective in your magic. Another thing that I'm going to say is that there are no gurus in magic. There are no gurus in witchcraft. That's not a thing. Yes, there are a lot of people. I mean, if you wanted to think of gurus, you would think of somebody like Gerald Gardner or Raymond Buckland or Scott Cunningham or on and on and on and on, right? There are people who are highly respected in the community and you may learn from them. And if they're alive and you are able, you may interact with them. And there's a lot of beautiful things to be had there. But, this isn't a cult. We're not a cult. And so we think for ourselves and we find our own way. And yes, there are plenty of roadmaps laid out, but stay centered. Don't give your power to someone else. Stay within yourself, know yourself, and walk your path. There are a lot of people who wouldn't like what I'm about to say. I'm going to say play. Be adventurous, be curious, and play. And if something calls out to you, you're curious about it, look into it. It may or may not be for you. It may lead you somewhere completely different. But a lot of people consider this kind of thing dabbling. And the term eclectic witch is sometimes looked down upon. It's frowned upon. But I think that everybody is essentially a bit of an eclectic witch. Because even if you are a part of a tradition, unless you work with the exact same deity and do everything the exact same way, you are, finding your own path within that tradition. I doubt that there are very many people who are exact carbon copies of one another, even if they are part of a tradition. There is some, I would think, leeway, a little bit of individuality in each and every instance, whatever that looks like. So, you can follow a tradition and be very strict about it, and still find your own little ways to have it be purely yours and authentic to you. And you can totally construct something new for yourself out of bits and pieces from other things. Again, not everybody likes that. Some people are very upset by that. This is for each individual to decide on their own. You have to decide your path and walk your path. Again, there's no guru, authority, pope, cult leader, whatever. We don't have that. We don't have that thing. And so, find your way. Know that everyone else's truth is not your truth. It's just not. There may be similarities. We can certainly learn from each other, but stand in your power and walk your truth. Live your truth. And the last thing I'm going to say as my advice for, baby witches, but also just to be effective in witchcraft and your magic, keep records. I'm not saying you have to do it forever, but there needs to be a time where you do absolutely keep records. So if you're doing meditation, keep records of that. If dreams are important to you and they're a big thing, keep records of those. Any, astral or journey work that you do or shadow work, keep records of those things because it will help you. Not only actually physically writing it down will help you work through it and come to new insights and what have you. And you don't have to put every detail if you don't want to. You can just put the keynotes, whatever jumps out as most important or most significant. That's up to you. I personally write everything, but I have a tendency to over-explain, so that might be part of that. But again, a personal preference. But you can go back and look later and see how you've progressed or changed or what that turned into, or it can be really helpful for your development. You can see things that you didn't realize at the time that have fallen into place now, and see how something has been occurring or coming on for a long time. I highly recommend writing down your spells. Please write down your spells. again, it doesn't have to be forever, but for a time, because in my experience, it takes years to figure out what works. And what I mean by that is, just like I said earlier, we are energetic individuals. We are energy, and that it comes through in our magic. It's the same with how we interact with different components that we use in our magic. So there can be 12 herbs sitting here that are all good for protection, and 12 crystals here that are all good for protection. And over the years, I've worked with the different ones at different times and developed this knowing, this understanding of what is most effective in my magic. Or like an herb can have 5 different properties. And after working with it for different purposes over the years, I've come to realize that it works best with my energy and in my work for this one property. And that's going to be different for everybody. That's a huge part of, in my mind, being effective in working your magic, at least when you work with correspondences, is actually doing it and keeping track of it and figuring out what works for you and what doesn't. Just because it works for the witch down the street does not mean that it's going to work that way for you. I really have found that the more you do the work, even if it's just a tiny bit every day, the more consistently you can work on whatever it is you need to work on, because we all need to work on different things at different times, the more effective you are going to be in your craft. The easier it is going to be to work magic. And actually, the more careful you're going to have to be. Because if you're in a rhythm, and I don't know that it's possible just to stay in that rhythm forever, I don't know. But if you're in a rhythm where you are really tapped in and you are really working, I mean, I had this in the past, and then I had a big gap where I wasn't. It's not that I wasn't doing anything. I just wasn't as consistent. And I wasn't on point. I wasn't doing what I really needed to be doing. And now I feel that I absolutely feel that I am again, and I can see. And it's like how easy and effective the magic was. And then it's choppy. And then now again, easy and effective. Like it's almost effortlessly that the manifestation and the magic is there, because I am doing what I need to be doing in the background. Whereas, like I said, you know, I'd say 2007 to 2011, I was there. Like, yeah. Now, 2007 is the very beginning of my practice. So there was little, you know, in the very beginning, it's like you're trying to figure things out for the first year or two, for sure. And really just, fortunately, again, it was weird for me because I was in a very sort of hyper situation. It was very intense because I worked in a witch shop, and I was constantly surrounded by other witches and by magic elements and knowledge and information. I mean, just experiences that you wouldn't normally have. So it was very intense. So, you know, that there's that to factor in there too. But then from 2011 to, well, I would say to this year, till 2020, it's not that my magic wasn't effective at all, because it was, but it was more random. It was more hit or miss, and it took much more effort than it did in the beginning and than it does now. And I didn't even realize, you know, because when you're in it, you're in it. I was in the grieving process hard for a long time. My mother died in 2011, and and all of these things happen for a reason, and there is growth and development in that. But I just have come to realize that in order to be really effective in directing energy, and I mean by doing a spell and directing energy in that way, we have to be doing our work. We have to be doing our work. Not that we can't have any success without it. We can. But how much success do you want to have? Like, how strong do you want your magic? How strong do you want to be in your own personal power and in your ability to work magic? That's the question, I guess. And that's for everyone to decide for themselves. And of course, you do not have to take what I say as any kind of end-all be-all truth. It is my truth. It is my advice. And you can do with it what you will. At any rate, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to stop talking now. And until next time, much love and gratitude.